Hi, I'm DOOG, and welcome to my studio. I have been studying music production for approximately 4 years now, more centered around dubstep and rhythm, all the hard stuff that we love and enjoy. I have taken some private lessons through some notable DJs like Draga, Hurtbox, Billy the Kid, and Prosecute. I've taken online courses through Forbidden Society, and all of these resources are phenomenal in gaining insight on dubstep production. However, paywall, and sometimes it's an inconvenience for people to schedule private sessions and things like that because they don't always get the opportunity to. So I would hate for someone who does have a pursuit of knowledge and wants to accelerate their learning but necessarily can't because of that inconvenience. So I developed a dubstep bootcamp all the way down to the point where you could take like a poor sick Victorian child, and if he really applied himself, maybe be able to develop a full dubstep track within a couple of months, again depending on how well he can apply himself. A little bit of backstory about me. I was in the Marines for 6 years before I started music production, and they taught me how to teach complex concepts to dumb crayon eaters right out of high school. So I'm applying those same teaching structures and methods to teaching dubstep. So a lot of this may feel like a classroom setting or a one-on-one mentoring, and it's kind of designed to be that way because there is no official doctrine to dubstep. There is no school or institution that is designed to teach dubstep production unless it's an online course, but again, paywall. And I kind of just want this to be a free resource that you can come back to where you're like, yeah, okay, I know this is right and this is actually learning and my music is sounding better. That is really my goal here. Just know that I'm not claiming to be an expert or a genius. I didn't go to a school because there is no official school. I'm all self-taught. I'm just teaching you what I think is right. And keep in mind that this is an art form. There is no conventional way to do art. There's an artist on one hand who uses acrylic paints and makes decent paintings, and then you have this other wacko on the other hand who paints with his feces but makes incredible Mona Lisas. You could argue that the feces guy is going to be a better painter or artist because his art is objectively more aesthetic to look at than someone who's actually using conventional tools and methods. So I promise you we're not going to be producing dubstep with our feces, but I will be doing my best to teach you what I think is cool and what actually sounds good to the ear from my opinion. And if you like it, great, then we can get along. And if you find out that this knowledge is actually applicable to you and really starts to work, please share it with other people who are trying to learn dubstep, because my goal is to build a community of people who really do care about this and really want to start learning and make better art. I would love to see people grow. I have a passion for teaching and I'm always willing to help. Please feel free to correct me in the comments or ask questions in the comments. If you think that there's something cool or interesting that you want to learn, please let me know. If you feel like there's something that I made a mistake in, please let me know. I would love to talk about that. What else is there? Yeah, I think that's it. I don't really have a closing statement. This was just all off the dome. So I hope this helps and enjoy my dubstep bootcamp. Peace. This is Orientation to Dubstep Production. The intent of this lesson is to form a perspective on what all of this is about. Our course overview will be going over the 3 levels of music producing, at least from my perspective: picking your DAW, and then finding the sounds and equipment necessary to start producing. So as mentioned earlier, the 3 levels to music production I labeled as recruit, student, and veteran. Starting at your recruit phase, this is approximately 1 to 2 years of learning music production. You're going to need a computer at these minimum requirements, a DAW, which is a digital art workspace. This is the program in which you make music in, and then a pair of headphones to hear what you're doing. You do not need fancy headphones. Hurtbox, who is a notable DJ and music producer, uses stock Apple earbuds, and I think his music sounds fine. The reality of this phase, your initial cost financially could be as low as $500 and as high as $1,000, depending on what equipment you have or need. The time dedicated, like I mentioned, 1 to 2 years. During this phase, you're really just learning the fundamentals of making sound digitally and learning how to operate your DAW. Your next evolution would be the student phase. It's going to be all the same equipment as the recruit phase, except possibly some upgrades. You may want to move away from headphones and get some speakers with a subwoofer. If you have the room to create your own dream studio, you may buy a desk and chair to be more comfortable in order to work longer hours, possibly subscriptions to plugins and sounds to increase your arsenal for more creativity. At this phase, the reality is that you should be developing a creative vision of who and what you want to be, but I recommend not falling in love with that because it will change over time. At this point, you should also be able to create full tracks in their entirety and really have a hunger to experiment with new techniques on building and maintaining energy. Now, the final phase is the veteran phase, where you've been studying music production for 4+ years. You are very dedicated at this point. Kudos to you. I highly encourage you to start upgrading to more equipment. External monitors would be my biggest recommendation. They increase efficiency like crazy. If you wish to experiment with a MIDI board or a keyboard, you may do that as well. The reality of the situation is you should be striving to stand out and be original and develop your own signature sound. If you don't know what I mean by signature sound, think about how many times you've heard a track or a mix, and before the song drops, you can almost guess who produced that track. That is because you are picking up on sounds that artist uses repetitively to make them them. Sudden Death and Subtronics are very notable for this. They use like instruments and background ambience and effects that they always use in their tracks, and it's just what makes them them. And you should really start kind of developing this mindset at this point and creating your own sound bank to stand out. Now that you have a baseline perspective of what dubstep production looks like from beginner to expert, I can start showing you how to obtain the resources necessary to start this career. Now here comes the drama of music production, where you are going to have to pick between one of two teams, that being Ableton or Fruity Loops Studios. The analogy that I like to give is iPhone versus Android. Even though they don't look like that aesthetically, it very much feels like that in practice. Keep in mind, these are not the only two DAWs. These are just the ones that I'm going over because they're the most widely used. I encourage you to do your research on all other DAWs and figure out which one you feel like you can stare at the longest for hours, and even download the free trials and see if you appreciate the workflow from one over the other. Ableton, I highly recommend because I'm an Ableton user. Like I said, it's more commonly used. So if you're self-teaching off of YouTube or private lessons, the chances are that teacher you're learning from will be using Ableton as a platform, but not always. A lot of people don't know this, but Ableton was actually built to play for live sets. So if you feel like you're someone who's going to be playing straight from their DAW live, definitely go with Ableton. But I feel like that's kind of rare unless you're like in the veteran phase. Ableton also has the custom building of tools, which is really nice. I don't know if you can do that in FL, and the audio editor in Ableton is really crazy. Just extremely efficient and great for dubstep. You can kind of do something similar in FL, except it's just not as efficient. Now the pros to FL, probably the biggest pro is the lifetime free updates. So once you buy a version of FL, you're locked into that clan and you get free updates every time, whereas you don't get that with Ableton. That's one of their cons. And Ableton is already super expensive, and every update is like buying a brand new version of Ableton. I will say though, the updates, you kind of do get what you pay for. They really do revamp them with every update, and when you buy Ableton, you get a ton of presets and sounds and access to a lot of other sounds that you can download later, whereas FL, you don't get that. When you buy FL, you essentially get an empty DAW and you have to fill it up yourself with your own sounds and tools. Some people do argue that FL is more user-friendly. I believe that's just because the corners are more rounded and it's more colorful. However, Ableton, you can change the color of your themes. It's like downloading a skin example for a character. You just go to abletonthemes.com. It's free, and there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of skins that you can download for Ableton. So that's kind of cool. Another pro to FL is it has designated synthesizers and effects that are like only originated out of FL. Harmor, for example, is a synthesizer that is really, really cool. And you can't really get that in Ableton unless you do a bunch of tomfoolery, which isn't worth it in my opinion. So these are broad strokes of pros and cons. I highly, highly encourage you to do your research before spending a ton of money and committing to one. Again, download some free trials, see which one you work with, maybe even ask some production friends if you already have them, see what platforms they use, and maybe team up with them. Those are just my recommendations. Now, here are the 4 most popular sources to obtain sounds in order to make music. That being Splice, Gumroad, Discord, and Google. Starting off with Splice, this is a subscription-based service that can go from 10 to 20 bucks a month, depending on your subscription level. They're all copyright-free sounds, so pretty much when you buy it, you own it, you can do whatever you want with it, and it is quite a user-friendly application, so it's great to start off with. I still use it today. It is super mainstream. There is an unbelievable amount of sounds to experiment with on there, so definitely try Splice. Gumroad is another good option. These are privately sold sample packs on their platform straight from artists. You can find a lot of unique sample packs and sounds that way. And if you're trying to chase a specific artist's sound, I would look them up on Gumroad and see if they have a sample pack there, because then you can start to learn how those sounds are made and maybe even incorporate them into your own music. Discord is another good platform to obtain sounds. There are chat rooms within Discord servers that are specifically meant for sample sharing. It is a great way to find unique samples and then to meet new people to learn new production techniques. And then there's Google, literally just Googling free sample pack and then putting the genre next to it that you're trying to find. You'll find sample packs on Reddit and backwoods websites of the internet. Boom Library is amazing for really high quality samples. They're used for video production, but you can also use them in music. Just know that they're super expensive, but you get what you pay for. Cymatics and Native Instruments are also places to obtain sound, so search around and play around. I definitely recommend Splice to start, but know that these 4 are the most popular to find new sounds. Now that you got a computer with a DAW on it and sounds, you need plugins and effects to manipulate those sounds within the DAW on your computer to make music. Starting off with Splice again, you can rent Serum Synthesizer and the Expert OTT straight from their application, which is awesome because Serum's a little pricey. I definitely recommend doing that. If you're looking for a free version, try Vital. This is a free synthesizer, very user-friendly, and a great beginner synth to just start learning sound design off of. If you're looking for something a little bit more complex and you're really trying to chase that iconic Square 4 rhythm sound, you gotta go to Reason Studios and get the Maelstrom granular synthesizer. It's very complicated for a beginner. I don't recommend jumping straight into that because you'll just bore yourself to death. And Reason is also a monthly subscription at $20 a month. Another platform to obtain effects and plugins would be the Plugin Boutique. Here you can get the Kilohertz bundle for free, which is really, really nice for beginners. Definitely recommend that. And also the Melda production bundle is also all free. I know that Samplifier uses the Melda production bundle quite a bit. And there's also just so many other tons of plugins and effects on Plugin Boutique. It's like the shopping mall for tools to music produce. So definitely experiment with all 4 of these platforms and tools. Okay, that was a ton of information, so we're going to do a video overview, and please do not skip this part thinking that you heard everything. I believe that this is literally the most important part of the video where you can start to understand everything a little bit more emotionally and really do a good review on it. So starting off, you need to appreciate that there's levels to this. You're never going to be good right off the rip. The only time that there's an exception where it's like if you're a prodigy or you were really good at video editing or Photoshop before, because those technical skills in a DAW, a digital art workspace, transfers over to Ableton. If you're somebody who has played a guitar or an instrument or whatever instrument and is really musically talented, it doesn't really help you that much if you don't know how to drive the DAW and drive this car. The analogy that I like to give is like, everybody wants to be really good at music producing and make these great songs, which is analogous to like being a race car driver. You want to drive NASCAR or Formula One. Well, you can't get there if you don't know how to put the keys in the ignition. So humble yourself, have patience, and then just try to learn the basics at first and really study that so that you can build a bunch of complexity off of that foundation of basics. Going off of that, pick your equipment wisely, do your research before spending a bunch of money, before you buy something and you're like, this actually isn't for me, and then you're suffering from this financial loss and it's just not fun. Not to put you down or anything, but like I'm just trying to protect you here because this can get expensive and it is costly. Gather resources. You want to start obtaining sounds and tools from the platforms that I recommended. They will treat you wisely if you use them wisely. Rather than doom scrolling and just binge watch, try going onto these platforms and finding tools that you might spark inspiration from or think that you might really want to use in your production. And if you find something you like, look it up on YouTube and watch somebody do a breakdown on it or use it in practice so that you can like understand it more before potentially buying. And if you find out that this is something that you really want to do and you want to invest your money and time into it, you have to develop a plan. No one has a plan for you but yourself. For me, for instance, I'm really big on fitness, so I have to have a workout schedule. I have to go to the gym and dedicate a certain amount of time a day with a goal in mind of what to work out and what to train. It's the same exact mindset with Ableton. You have to invest a certain amount of time and have a goal in mind in order to learn and achieve things so that you can start developing this art. You're not just gonna pick it up and think that like you can make the coolest dubstep track in like a few months. Depending on how much time you invest really determines on how well you pick it up. So I believe in you. If the human being can split the atom and create atomic and hydrogen bombs to the point where aliens visit us after we do that, just saying, then I believe that you can learn a little bit of a DAW and start developing really cool tunes. And that's something that I would love to see and hear, and I would support you fully. If you ever have any questions, comments, or just requests for help, please reach out to me, either commenting down below. You can DM me directly on Instagram at doog.mp3. And yeah, I hope this helps, and I hope that you really just formed a new perspective on this awesome journey of yours.